Hi everybody, I'm Maria Bianco. Welcome to Inside New York. Tonight we'll go inside Broadway and talk to Jackie Mason about his new one-man show, Politically Incorrect. We'll find out if he really has any plans to run for political office. Also, Stu Wechsler interviews mob lawyer Frank Ragano and finds out why, after 30 years, has he decided to come forward and tell all in his new book. This and a whole lot more coming up, so stay tuned.
Brought to you from New York, the most exciting town in the world. Welcome to Inside New York, New York's premier new TV show, with host Stu Wechsler. Get the inside scoop on who's who, what's hot, and what's not.
If you're looking for the finest in marble design, be sure and call the Marble and Granite Supply Incorporated, located in Manhattan, Paramus, and Ridgefield, New Jersey. We have limestone, granite, marble, and Kirkstone in every color to meet your design needs, whether it be at home or in your office. Be sure and call the Marble and Granite Supply Incorporated, where quality and craftsmanship comes first.
Welcome back. Jackie Mason's inside New York with his new show, Politically Incorrect. He's unafraid to tackle any subject from racism to sexual harassment to the White House. We had an opportunity to watch his show, which inspires understanding and, most importantly, lots of laughter. Let's take a look.
You should never pick up people that's politically incorrect. That's why I'm calling this whole show Politically Incorrect. But we found out that this is a time when you have to be very careful how you pick on anybody. I experienced this. I found out that the witch Schwarzer could wipe out a whole career in a second. I never knew it was such a terrible word. I was saying it for 30 years, and the black people love it. They call me brother, brother. The Jews are, look what he said. Black people love me. They say brothers every time they see me. Hello, brother, brother. How they became my brother, I don't know. I never saw it with my mother. How they became my brother. But it's not only the truth with black people, it's the truth with everybody. Everybody now who was once persecuted, who's now persecuting everybody else. Women are persecuting men, homosexuals are persecuting heterosexuals. The only people that are safe to pick on now is tall, white Protestant American Gentiles. You can abuse them, call them any name, they got no organization, they got no place to go for help.
Believe it or not, Jackie Mason grew up surrounded by rabbis. His father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and great-great-grandfather were rabbis. And at the age of 25, Jackie was also ordained as a rabbi. But 3 years later, he quit the synagogue to become a comedian because he said, quote, somebody in the family had to make a living. We had an opportunity to go backstage with Jackie Mason, and here's what he had to say.
Jackie, what got you into comedy? How did you get out of the rabbi business?
I didn't have to get out. I was not much of a rabbi, so I figured if I quit, nobody will notice it. And it didn't bother anybody that I was not a rabbi anymore, except maybe my father, because my father was waiting for all of his children to be rabbis. I have 3 older brothers who are still rabbis to this day, and it was like a holy heritage of my family for that everybody should become a rabbi. So I felt a moral obligation to my father to become a rabbi, but once I started practicing it, I really felt like a hypocrite because my heart wasn't in it, and I wasn't really as sincere as a rabbi should be. I used to stand on a pulpit preaching to people that they shouldn't fool around with women, that it's the pleasures of the flesh, it's not important. We should think about spiritual values and the freedom of the way people fool around with each other, men and women. All this is blatant sexuality, how disgusting it is. As I was saying it, a beautiful blonde would walk by and I'd lose my place. I forgot what I was talking about. And I said to myself, wait a second, maybe my father thinks this is terrible, but for me, it would have been a great idea. However, and I felt that this is no way to live. You have to be honest with yourself. And you can't be in a profession that's not true to your own conscience. And if you're low enough not to have a conscience, like me, you got to do something that matches your character.
Speaking of lack of conscience, what do you think about lawyers?
Same as I think about this whole idea of what I just said. You should have lawyers have the decency they would quit too, like I quit the rabbi. No, I'm kidding. There are honest lawyers. There are honest lawyers. They're not in this country, but I'm sure there are honest lawyers. The ones that are probably not working because I can't find them. Somehow they can't seem to get into the profession long enough to make a living from it. But I feel a lawyer has a right to be dishonest. The basic premise of being a lawyer depends on dishonesty, because they tell you that a person is worthy of being defended whether you know he's guilty or not, which means you have to start by lying. If you know a man is a mass murderer, he's entitled to a defense. Every place else, it's immoral to defend a murderer, but in your business, it's an honor. So if it's an honor to defend a murderer, how good could you be personally? That's why I got no respect for you, but I'm working for nothing, so I take a chance.
Well, Jackie, you know one thing, I don't think clients want an honest lawyer. They want a ruthless lawyer, and then they complain that the lawyer is dishonest and ruthless.
Well, the truth is your lawyer depends on lying for a living. That's the essence of the democratic society. That's the basis of our whole system of jurisprudence, of justice. So I can't blame you for being dishonest, but I want you to know that I got no respect for you.
What about the legal system? You have respect for the legal system?
Positively not. The whole legal system stinks, because the truth of the matter is you have to prove you're mentally retarded to get on a jury. In order to satisfy the opposing lawyer, if you still know anything that's going anywhere in the world, you can't get the job. You have to prove you never heard of this case or ever heard of any other case. You have to prove you never saw a television set, you never heard of radio, you don't know you're alive, you don't know where you are, where you live, your eyes are closed for the last 30 years, you never saw or heard anything, then you're a perfect juror. As soon as you know something, they throw you out. So what kind of a justice system is this? That only the idiots could be on juries, and they're the ones you depend on for your fate in terms of life and death. Imagine if a doctor had to be as stupid as a juror. Would you be happy to see such a doctor?
What do you think of our new president?
I think he's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Total fraud without a conscience. He should have been a lawyer. I don't know how he became a president. The presidents in general.
He was a lawyer.
That's right, that's right. But he moved up. Because in this profession as a president, I think he even outdoes any lawyer. A lawyer at least is practicing the democratic spirit by defending the defenseless. He lies for nothing. He lies not to defend anything. He lies just to make a living for reasons he can't even figure out. He lies even when it's not necessary to lie, even when there's nothing involved. The truth would offend this man. He gets a pleasure out of lying, even when there's nothing involved. He lies. Take a look how many lies he just told about the health plan. Every single time he talks about the health plan, there's new lies involved. First he said it'll include the mentally problems, then it doesn't include the people with mental problems. Then he said it'll include psychiatry, now it could do without it. Then it'll include dentistry, now it could do without it. It'll help children without children, now with adults, without adults, with money, without money. Whenever you ask a question, he has a different health plan. This man is by nature a liar. He lies about everything. He lied about Vietnam. He lied about, he smoked but he didn't inhale. Is there anybody left in the world that believes you smoked marijuana but he didn't inhale? Would you put a pastrami sandwich in your mouth if you didn't want to swallow it? Did you ever see a guy walking around with a pastrami? What are you doing? I don't know. The man is a fake by nature. And that's how he depends on it for a living. I think a lie detector machine on him would work in reverse, because he only gets tense and nervous when he tells the truth. This man cannot be honest about anything, and he's such a consummate liar that people can't believe he's really lying, because everybody else has a conflict of some kind when they lie. Something in the recesses of their conscience at some level disturbs them. Not him. He lies without any source of controversy in his conscience. There's no conscience at all. He's as devoid of a conscience as a serial killer. You ever see a serial killer just killed 40 people? You ask him what happened? That's my business.
I understand about the only thing you defend in your show is Clinton's sex life. Is that right?
I defend it because I feel adultery is really nobody's business. Luckily, it became his business. That's why he has no time to be a president. But I tell you the truth, I think I have never saw such a busy sex maniac in my life. Every time you meet a state trooper from any state in the Union, he brought in 12 girls. This guy brought in 32 girls. This guy is bringing him a girl. This guy is on his way with a girl. That's why you'll notice they're bombing Bosnia every day, and nobody cares.
We'll be right back with more of Jackie Mason after these messages.
East Side High Tech, located at 332 East 86th Street between 1st and 2nd Avenues. We have TVs, stereos, VCRs, and telephone systems. We also have appliances, cameras, Walkmans, and personalized service to help you make your selections. Our special this month is the AT&T 3610 cellular phone, on sale for $49 after rebate. East Side High Tech, where your satisfaction is our business. Located 2 East 86th between 1st and 2nd Avenues.
Welcome back to Inside New York. We're here in Jackie Mason's dressing room with his his dressing room with the smash hit. What is the smash hit here?
It's called Politically Incorrect.
Politically Incorrect, right. And we're
See how
talking about...
much homework you did for this job. There's only one title and it's too much for you. How did you become a lawyer if you can't remember this?
That's why I'm trying to get out of the business into another business.
I see.
Show business is easier.
But there's a defense involved, there's a little more cash. So
Yeah.
for these prices, you figure let him sweat. Go ahead.
What about Hillary Clinton? Do you think...
Well, it's a
she's
team
gonna
that
be
work
a
together.
good
She's the same kind of a fake that he is. They work together as a team. Don't you notice that every time he gets caught cheating, she defends him? Every time she screws up with the checks and the taxes and the fraudulent stories about Whitewater, he defends her. He just said she is the most honest person that he knows. If she's the most honest person that he knows, could you imagine the rest of the people he knows? First of all, who would come to him to find out about an honest person? Would you go to the biggest liar in the world to find out who's honest? It's the game that they play with people. And, you know, it bothers me to really say this because people think that I'm making fun of the presidency. I'm not making fun of the presidency. I respect my country and my presidency as much as anybody. He doesn't respect the presidency, and it's my job to notice it. Do you understand?
I understand.
It's not like he has a right to demean the presidency, and it's our moral obligation not to mention it. What if your rabbi happens to be a pimp in Philadelphia? Are you morally obligated not to mention that he's a pimp? You're not desecrating the rabbinate or the institution. You're catching a thief. And it's your moral obligation to catch him because you're protecting the presidency by announcing it. He's the one who's destroying it, not me.
I see Howard Stern beat you to the punch. He's running for governor on the Libertarian Party. What do you think
He
about
didn't
that?
beat me to the punch because I didn't think that I was going to be a candidate of the Libertarian Party for governor. Nobody offered me the job and I didn't ask for it. The King of England didn't beat me to that job either because I wasn't looking for that job. And the Prime Minister of Ethiopia didn't beat me to that job. Who told you that I was looking for this job? I think he would make a great governor. You know why?
Why?
Because nobody knows what a governor does in the first place. People who like Mario Cuomo, do they know why? You ask them, what did Mario Cuomo do? They don't know. The people who don't like him, they don't know what he did either. Say, why don't you like him? They can't remember. When you want to pick on a mayor, everybody's aware of what a mayor does or doesn't do. The crime, they attribute it to the mayor. The school is not working, the mayor. Asbestos in a school, they blame the mayor. The street is dirty, the mayor. Now when you say all these problems came up, who's responsible for it? Is the governor? No. Why? They don't know. What does he do? They don't know. They know he's got a job, but they don't know what it entails. So they know that he's good or bad, and they have no idea for what reason because they don't know what his obligation is to accomplish. If I asked anybody in this room, what is the governor supposed to do right now that he's not doing? You can bet your life there's not one person who could answer me. Do you know what the governor did, whether it's right or wrong? You're a lawyer, you're an educated man, you can't get over how intelligent you are, I'm sure you're a successful person. If I asked you, is the governor doing a good job, I'll bet you can't answer me. Because you don't know what he was supposed to do in the first place. So if you don't know what if a guy is supposed to fix a chair and it's still not working, you know it's his fault. But if you don't know what the guy does for a living and you see a chair, who do you blame for it? You don't know.
Jackie, listen, you conquered the Catskills. You conquered Miami. You conquered Broadway. What's next for you? What projects do you have on?
Well, I don't have anything left that I want to conquer. I just want to be on Broadway for the rest of my life. I really think this is the best kind of a job for me. I enjoy expressing myself here. I'm an egomaniac by nature, so I like to see a live audience applauding and laughing, and it makes me feel like a hit. And this is what I wanted all my life. That's why all my life I've hated to do anything in the movies. Because I did a few movies, like Caddyshack 2, and the picture was very successful. But if somebody offered me a movie right now, I wouldn't go near it. And there's not enough money in the world that could make me do a picture. Because I don't want to get up 6 o'clock in the morning and talk to a wall, talk to a horse, sit to freeze in the bottom of a swimming pool, hang out with a pile of hay. All these things I had to go through while I was shooting that picture. And I'm supposed to feel like a star. Is this what a star does? If somebody told you you're a star, good. Now you're laying under the toilet on top of a building, you're flying through a sky, they're punching you in the mouth, they're running after you in the street. This is what you have to do. Would you take it? Nobody wants it, but they call it a movie, and it's supposed to be a pleasure. It's no pleasure. It's I don't think there's any more miserable experience in the world for a civilized human being than shooting a movie. People are glamorized by it because they see it on the screen and it looks like a star's vehicle. But the making of it, to get on that screen, is such a torturous, horrible experience. If your alternative is to do something even harder, like to be a coal miner, you might want to do it. But if your alternative is to mind your own business, sit around with a jacket, or go on the stage and tell a few jokes, and watch people applauding while you're a celebrity, then why would somebody want to give up this for that kind of human misery, where you have to stand on a freezing street in the middle of a snowstorm, and you have to say the same thing 5,000 times? If you want to get even with somebody, that's what you give them. You say, put them in the corner and make them say the same thing 5,000 times. If you catch a prisoner in Vietnam, that's what you want to do to him. Torture him by make him live like a guy who's shooting a movie. Because there's no bigger torture on this earth. If I said to you, hello, good, we'll wait 2 minutes, say hello again. And then till tomorrow, a week from Thursday, you're still saying hello from here, from there, from this end, from that end, sitting, standing, toiling, sweating, looking, bill, and this is how you spend the day. Now, how long could you do this without getting nauseous? If you don't get nauseous from this, then you're so retarded that you don't know what you're doing in the first place.
You know, Jackie, when I watch you, I can't stop laughing, and yet underneath it all, and I've known you for many years, I've watched you over the many years, that you're a very serious man, and what you say is not, it's no joke. I mean, it's a joke. There's something underneath it.
I don't do any humor that I don't respect as a statement in itself. If I don't think it's a meaningful statement or it says something worth listening to, I don't use it as comedy. I like to study life and make comedy out of what I think is meaningful observations, insights that I think are important to mention. There's something that's penetrating about what's wrong or what's hypocritical or fraudulent or incomprehensible or indefinable, something that's on everybody's mind that needs explanation and that needs identification and is worth discussing because there's something enlightening about bringing it to light. And I think unless you're dealing with subjects that matter, unless you're making statements that are worth listening to, then the comedy has no substance and no meaning, and you're talking about nothing, it becomes a hollow shell.
Was Oliver Stone right about who killed JFK? Stay tuned and you'll find out.
This is Stu Wechsler, Inside New York. We have with us Frank Ragano, who's written a hot book called Mob Lawyer. Frank was a lawyer for some of the leading mobsters of the 20th century, for the Southern Mafia Dons, as well as other mobsters. And at this stage in life, he's decided to tell all, and he's got some startling revelations about the possible reasons and parties who were guilty of the death of Jack Kennedy, as well as some revelations regarding the death of Jimmy Hoffa, and some spectacular and fascinating stories about Cuba, the famous man, Superman, known as Superman in Cuba. And the book is amusing, fascinating, and historical. And welcome to my show, Frank. And
thank you very much for inviting me.
Let's ask the $64 question first, perhaps. You were somehow involved in a message from James Hoffa to others to put the hit on Jack Kennedy, were you not?
Yes, that occurred in July of 1963.
And how did that, what happened?
What, do you want me to reveal what he said or what led up to that?
Well, why don't you tell us what led up to it, and you carried a message to...
Carlos Marcello and Santo Trafficante. There were two of my
from James Hoffa.
Right. First of all, let me make this observation here. I was Jimmy Hoffa's personal lawyer for 15 years up to the time he disappeared. I was Santo Trafficante's personal lawyer for 27 years. And also counsel Carlos Marcello, chieftain in New Orleans, for 17 years. So I was intimately involved with these fellows, not only as a professional, but I became emotionally and socially involved with them. And what had happened was, and I'll be as brief as I can be, what led up to that message was that at the time there were 2 indictments pending against Jimmy Hoffa. He was still under investigation, and the third one was looming. And don't forget that Jimmy Hoffa and Bobby Kennedy, the Attorney General, were bitter, bitter enemies. I can't imagine how they detested one another. Carlos Marcello had been forcibly taken into custody and forcibly placed on a plane and flown to Guatemala and dumped off there under the orders of Bobby Kennedy.
And he was the head of New Orleans.
New Orleans, right. And then you have Santo Trafficante. The FBI had him under surveillance 24 hours a day, harassing him, and they were about to indict him. And they saw the handwriting on the wall, just a matter of time, they would all go to prison. And Jimmy was certainly no fool. He was one of the most intelligent men I've ever met in my life. And so one day in July of 1963, he called me into the executive dining room, motioned me from his office to the dining room, and he had told me that the time had come, I wanted to know when I was going to see he'd never called Santa by name. He said, your friend, when are you going to see your friend again? And Carlos, and I said, in fact, I'm going to fly into New Orleans tonight. And we were in Washington, of course. And he said, well, I want you to tell him that you killed the president, and words to that effect, and it's got to be done, and it's got to be done now. We can't wait any longer, and so forth. And knowing Jimmy as I did, he would make these outrageous statements. He's unpredictable. He would make these outrageous statements, and I didn't take him seriously. I thought I'd humor him. Yeah, I thought I'd tell him about it. And flying down to New Orleans, knowing Santa as I did, I really expected these fellows to break out in laughter, and say, "Is this guy losing his mind?" I mean, that's so far-fetched, And so we were in a coffee shop the next morning, and I approached him and I said, and I had given Jimmy a nickname. I called him Marteduzzo. In Italian, it means the little hammer, and that's the way we spoke of him. And so I said, you never guess what Marteduzzo wants you guys to do. He wants you to kill the president, John Kennedy. He wants you to do it right away. I thought they would break out in laughter. Instead, they were dead silence. They looked at one another, and I got the distinct feeling that they were already planning on it, and that I was exercising poor judgment in discussing a matter that sensitive in a coffee shop or a restaurant. So I immediately changed the subject.
Didn't they later claim that they had carried out the hit?
4 days before Santa Kennedy died in March of 1987, he knew he was dying. He was going to Houston. His kidneys had failed. He'd had a one bypass surgery. The doctors in Tampa told him he could not survive another bypass. He knew he was going to die, and he called me, and we talked for an hour and a half, and he was relating to me, really getting a lot of things off of his chest, mistakes he made in his lifetime, and where he told me words to the fact that I think Carlos screwed up. I didn't want to use that four-letter word. When he killed, killing Juan, they called him John. I think we should have gotten rid of Bobby instead. And there was a reason why they wanted to kill John and not Bobby. And I'll get into that if you want me to. And so he told me that they made some terrible mistakes, and also that he made a mistake in not taking pictures of Senator John Kennedy when he set up that sex orgy in Havana for John Kennedy with 3 prostitutes. And so he was getting a lot of things off.
Maybe they wouldn't have had to kill him then if they had those pictures.
Well, he said throughout his life,
the involvement of government and the mob,
of course,
and sex in one.
You see, when John accepted that favor, as it turned out, Santa owned some 5 casinos and hotels in Havana, Cuba. And John Kennedy, the senator, wound up at the San Souci, which was the second largest nightclub in Havana. And Santa became his host and sensed that he had a yen for women. So they fixed him up with 3 Cuban prostitutes, but they placed him into a suite at the Commodore Hotel, and there was a 2-way mirror there. And they observed the sexual activities through a 2-way mirror. And throughout his life, when they were really hounding him, he would say to me, "Damn it, I made a mistake. I should have taken pictures. That's the way that message was carried."
Now, there was another confession, or actually claim, by these 2 mafia dons that they had killed Kennedy, wasn't there, when there was an attempt to get a loan from Hoffa, and they said, "You owe us one"?
Carlos said that he wanted to get a loan from Jimmy Hoffa from the pension fund to purchase a hotel in the French Quarters in New Orleans, and he felt that Jimmy was dragging his feet, and he said, "You tell him he owes me, and he owes me big." And so I related that message to Jimmy. He didn't respond to it, and simply told me to tell Carlos that he was working on it and he was moving as fast as he could.
Did you take that to mean he owes me one because I carried out
No, I didn't take it to mean that at all. All of these were pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that really did not all come together until March of 1987 when Santo began to tell me these things. I had suspicions, but to me in those days it was too far-fetched that these fellows could kill the President of the United States.
Do you now believe that that was the most probable explanation for Kennedy's death?
No question about it. They had the motivation and had the capabilities. As evidence of that fact is that when the CIA decided that they wanted to eliminate Fidel Castro, they didn't turn to their own agents, they turned to Santo Trafficante. They had more confidence in the mob being able to eliminate Castro than their own agents.
Who killed Jimmy Hoffa?
Frank Fitzsimmons, the then president of the Teamsters, and the mob got together for various reasons that it would take a while to explain, but if you want me to get some of the highlights, I'll do that. But
we have just a couple of minutes left, but maybe you can hit a couple of the highlights.
When Jimmy left prison, he served 4 years and 10 months of maximum security. He felt that Frank Fitzsimmons, who was then the caretaker president that he had appointed, had double-crossed him. And he was obsessed with the idea of regaining the presidency of the Teamsters. And he began to act irrationally. And he was doing the things that he wouldn't have done prior to the time he went to prison. And one of the things that he was doing was talking to Oscar Frehley, a writer who wrote The Untouchables. And Santo word got back to the guys up north who had now jumped on Fitzsimmons' bandwagon, and they were getting loans from pension firm Fitz. Fitz was a drinker. He was easily intimidated. Jimmy was not. Jimmy could say no to the mob if they came to him with a bad loan. Fitz would give them anything they wanted. And he was a drinker. He'd rather play golf with Nixon, which he did frequently, than run the Union. And so Jimmy was telling the writer that when he regained the presidency, he was going to expose all these bad loans that were made to the mob while he was in prison, and they were all going to prison, and word got back to them. Another thing that was done, they suspected that he had caused a bomb to be planted in Frank Fitzsimmons' car, his son's car, Richard Fitzsimmons, and almost killed him. They thought he had lost it, he'd become irrational, and they decided they had to get rid of him before it was too late. And they did.
Do you know how they got rid of him?
Yes, in the book we tell exactly how it came about, who killed him. The only thing we don't know is where the body is located, and I can assure you it's not in the end zone of the Giant Stadium.
You have a wonderful story about Superman that I guess we're not going to have time to tell, but if people read the book, they'll find out about the legendary Superman
who was portrayed in Godfather 2, yes. The movie Godfather 2.
I wish we had more time. We could go on for some. Maybe we'll be able to get, when you come back to New York, or I'd be glad to fly down and visit you and get some more footage on this, but you've got some fascinating history to tell.
Thank you, Stuart. I really appreciate it. It's been a privilege and a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Each week on Inside New York, Stu Wechsler, who's a prominent Manhattan attorney, is going to do a segment called Bad Boys of the Week, in which he uncovers scams taking place in New York City. If you know of one taking place, you can write to us by writing to Inside New York with Stu Wechsler at 555 Madison Avenue, New York, New York, 10022. Thank you for joining us at Inside New York with Stu Wechsler. Be sure and join us next week when we'll go inside New York and find out the inside scoop on what's happening around town. Good night, everybody.